Welcome aboard, applicants. Let's begin with the first year law students exam, November 2020, question number 2. As with all of our essay questions, we begin with the call of the question. So let's begin there. Number 1. What claim or claims can Martha bring against Carl, if any? Discuss. 2. What defenses or defenses can Carl assert against Martha, if any? Discuss. 3. What claim or claims can Martha bring against John, if any? Discuss. 4. What defense or defenses can John assert against Martha, if any? Discuss. Okay, right here we know that we're dealing with party versus party. So, and we're dealing with claim or claims and not crimes. So we're dealing with either a tort or a contract law area of law. We don't know exactly what yet, but let's start answering our calls right here and now. Okay. What claims can Martha bring against Carl? Okay, and then question mark, which is a nice. What we're also going to do with that is we're going to put underneath here. We bring this to the second page. We're going to say Martha v. Carl. Okay. Now under 2, what defenses can Carl assert against Martha? Question mark. Okay, number 3 here. We're going to say what claims can Martha bring against John? Question mark. And like we did under number 1, we're going to do that for number 3. Martha v. John. And then for number 4, we're going to say what defenses what defenses can John assert against Martha? Okay, excellent. Now that we've set up our conflict pairing, let's go up to read our question. To get 2 things, we're going to start getting our area of law, and when we get that area of law, we'll get our shopping list. Okay. Martha is a college student living in a condominium condo owned by her uncle John. On various occasions, John promised Martha that he would give her the condo when she graduates, which she will do in a few months. Martha had suggested to John that the condo needed repainting. Recently, John saw his friend Carl, a painter, and offered him $3,000 if Carl would, within the next 3 weeks, repaint the interior walls of my small condo where my niece Martha lives. John said that he would supply Carl with all the paint. Carl orally agreed to do the painting, thinking that the condo was in the same city where both John and Carl lived. In fact, the condo was 250 miles away. 2 weeks later, Carl's painting truck with all of his equipment was destroyed in an accident that was not Carl's fault. When Carl called John to tell him that he would not be able to paint the condo as scheduled, he learned for the first time that the condo was 250 miles away. Carl told John that he very much doubted that he would be able to replace his truck and equipment quickly. Carl also told John that even then he would not be able to paint a condo 250 miles away for $3,000 unless John paid all his travel and lodging expenses. John told Carl, "Let's forget about the whole thing." Martha was disappointed to hear that John was not going to have the condo repainted. So she told him that she would pay someone else $3,000 to have it done. At her painting contractor's suggestion, she paid him an additional $12,000 to install a new kitchen floor, new kitchen appliances, and new bathroom fixtures. After Martha graduated, John told her that he could no longer afford to give her the condo and instead would be selling it. Okay, it looks to me like we have area of law, contract law. So we're going to put that in right now. Contract formation, third party rights, conditions, covenants, excuses, discharge of the duty to perform, remedies, breach of contract, and remedies. Okay, copy and paste this below, and we should be well on our way. Okay, right here, right here. Okay, now coming up here and looking at our question now for issue spotting purposes. Martha is a college student living in a condominium owned by her uncle John. Well, supporting facts. On supporting for what, you might say? Well, issues that haven't come up yet, but these facts will be used, and so we just gotta be patient. On various occasions, John promised Martha that he would give her the condo when she graduates, which she will do in a few months. Now, John promised Martha. That's going to be very important here. That sounds very similar to something like maybe promissory estoppel, possibly. We'll have to see here. Martha had suggested to John that the condo needed repainting. Okay. Recently, John saw his friend Carl, a painter, and offered. Ooh, here we are. Offered him $3,000 if Carl would, within the next 3 weeks, repaint the interior walls of my small condo where my niece Martha lives. Okay, right here, I think and Carl said that he would supply Carl with all the paint. So we have all of our offer right here. What area of law does this sound like? Painting, repainting. Sounds to me like services, common law. So let's come down here and make note of that. Applicable law, common law. Why do we say that? Because I think the painting equals services. And what area of law governs services contracts? Common law. Okay. And with that, now let's go into contract formation. Remember, a validly enforceable contract contains what? Enforceable offer acceptance consideration without applicable defenses to contract formation. Now, do we have an offer here? And I would say yes. Why? Because, well, offer requires that we go into intent to be bound. He called him up, and then we have terms up here, intent to be bound, right here. John saw his friend Carl, a painter, and offered him $3,000 if Carl would, within the next 3 weeks, repaint the interior walls of my small condo where my niece Martha lives. Sounds like we have intent to be bound. Now the terms, we have certain indefinite terms here. Now, remember our terms: quantity, time, interested parties, price, and subject matter. So we got quantity, which would be one painted, let's see here, painted condo. Okay, time, we know that within the next 3 weeks. Okay, right up here he says that he within the next three weeks. Okay, and then interested parties, we know this. Oh, excuse me, I'm doing this. I'm doing Martha versus Carl. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I'm sorry. Let me pause here, because a lot of what I'm doing here, I think I needed to be putting down underneath here. Thank you very much for your patience with me. Okay, and we'll just put this underneath here. Thankfully for copy and paste here. Okay, interested parties. We got. Ooh, this is interesting, because see, I'm bringing this. This is a really interesting essay here, because I'm looking at this in terms of Carl are John and Carl. So you know what? I think we were right. Let me redo what we did up here. Okay, because what we're going to do is to see Martha sounds like she's a third party in this contract. So we're going to have to establish the contract between Carl, or I should say between John and Carl, for Martha to have any kind of rights that would vest. So let's do that. Okay. So interested parties. We got John and Carl. Okay. We know the price, $3,000. And subject matter, painting. Okay. Now that we've established that, we need to make sure that there was an acceptance. And was there an acceptance? Well, we know that John said that he would supply Carl with all the painting. Carl orally agreed to do the painting. Okay, so here it is right here. Orally agreed to do the painting. Okay, so there was. Okay. Was there a consideration? Making sure to note that bargain for exchange of legal detriment and benefit flowing between the offeror and the offeree. Seems to me like there is. There would be money for painting, and that looks to me like sufficient consideration here. And then was there any defenses though? So remember, we're looking at defenses that Carl can assert against Martha. Now, right here, we have the defense of what? Possibly we have statute of frauds. But remember, we're not dealing with goods $500 or more. We're dealing with the 1 year rule. We got to look to see, does this contract concern? Yeah, exactly. There was a mistake. Exactly right. Right. See up here though, we got to. I'm happy you put that down. Thank you so much, because I'm gonna make a note of that mistake. Yeah, impossibility, impracticability, frustration of purpose. And right here, right now, this right up here, we need to make note that this, when they right here, Carl orally agreed to do the painting. See, this is all oral communication. Does this have to be in writing? And that's why we're looking at. I don't see that, because within the 3 weeks. So statute of frauds is not going to be a defense. No defense, but I would. The one area would be the 1 year rule, but it doesn't apply because it's within. It can be performed within the 1 year within 1 year, because it's 3 weeks, obviously. Okay, all right. Now he said that he would not be able to paint the. Okay, excuse me. Let me come up here. Carl orally agreed to do the painting. Okay, thinking that the condo was in the same city where both John and Carl lived. In fact, the condo was 250 miles away. We established that was a mistake. What kind of mistake are we dealing with here? Well, that actually is a unilateral mistake. Okay, now then coming down here, 2 weeks later, Carl's painting truck with all of his equipment was destroyed in an accident that was not Carl's fault. So what would this technically be? Well, let's see. I would have to say that this would be prospective inability. It could possibly trigger that. Okay. And I would say the painting truck and equipment was destroyed. Okay. Now down here under adequate assurance, want to make sure to have that talked about if it's present here. Now, when Carl called John to tell him they would not be able to paint the condo as scheduled, he learned for the first time that the condo was 250 miles away. Carl told John that he very much doubted that he would be able to replace his truck. There it is. There's your prospective inability and equipment quickly. Okay, that's right. Was there time? Was there what now? Yeah. What was it about the? What are you seeing? Are you seeing a condition precedent problem? Was there? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And when you're dealing with the condition precedent, I would say at this point, when right now, now this is when Carl learned for the first time that the condo was 250 miles away. That also goes with our mistake aspect. Now, Carl told John that he's very much doubted that he would be able to replace his truck and equipment quickly. There's your prospective inability. Now, Carl also told John that even then he would not be able to paint a condo 250 miles away. Right there, what would that be? He would not be able to. I think at this point there wasn't any adequate assurance. I think this could float right into anticipatory repudiation. Okay. But remember, we also now that we've got the anticipatory repudiation, we need to slide in claims that Martha can bring against Carl. Now that there's been anticipatory repudiation, there's a breach of contract. Remember, we bring up well, let's see here, substantial performance. Okay. Okay, and then we bring up possible remedies. Now, then we're going to bring up the third-party issues because I don't. This is the aspect here. John had promised Martha. See this aspect here down here that okay, Martha versus John. I would say here that we have because of all of the above that we could mention, we're dealing with promissory estoppel. I don't think now that I consider all the facts, I don't think Martha would be a third party here. I think her best claim would be against John for promissory estoppel. And remember, it's a condition substitute for condition that is, and we would make sure to walk through. And remember, we have our contract formation above here. There it is, contract formation. And then condition, we're going to be talking about, not a condition, excuse me, consideration. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. And then down here, we're going to, now that we have all this, make sure to continue issue spotting now. Okay, now, Carl told John that even then he would not be able to paint the condo 250 miles away for $3,000 unless John paid all his travel and lodging expenses. John told Carl, let's forget about the whole thing. That right there, I would possibly say was a waiver. Now, here's the thing about this. When Carl said that he would be unable, that might have been anticipatory repudiation, but at this point, I think we have a waiver situation going on here. Now, in that instance, okay, do we still have breach of contract? That is a very interesting question. What is it that would? Yeah, because right here he says, "Don't let's forget about the whole thing." However, now this is the aspect here. Carl told John that even then he'd not be able. Okay, we got that. Unless John paid all his travels. See that this is the aspect too. I think there was a possible modification aspect here that you could have brought in. And that might have gone under, possibly up under here, under, cut that out of there, and then bring this up here. Actually, you know what? That actually is probably going to go right after this one here. Oh, excuse me. My timing on that one was bad right here. There it is. Thank you. Okay. And so there was a possible waiver and possible modification before that because of the, he's saying unless, right here, unless John paid all his travel and lodging expenses. Now, Carl told John, let's forget about it. Let's forget about the whole thing. Now, with a waiver situation, even though he's waiving the performance, does that, yeah, unilateral mistake, does that allow Carl to, or should say, does that allow Martha to bring a claim against Carl? And see, this is where we have to find that there. See, we've identified there being a contract here, and we've identified that between the parties there was indeed adequate assurance that we talked about that should have been provided, or prospective ability because of the truck and the equipment was destroyed, should have been adequate assurances provided, but there wasn't any, and because of that, the anticipatory repudiation. This is where I'm looking at anticipatory repudiation, was this one here, that he would not be able to paint a condo, or to paint, yeah, right here. So I would have to say at this point there was a breach. Yeah, incidental beneficiary. That's a possible argument, but we'll hang on to that. Now, if we're dealing with Martha here, remember she has to be able to bring. Yes, that's exactly right. She has to be able to bring a claim against Carl, and that's why we're dealing with third-party rights. You know what? Thank you so much for your patience with me on this one. Third party. Remember though, it's a third-party beneficiary contract. And that's the unique thing about this is we're not dealing with an intended, because they didn't, right, they weren't in contract. I think it was incidental beneficiary, which means they don't have any rights to vest even in the first place. That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So what claims? That is very interesting. I don't know at this present moment, because we need to further issue spot. Martha was disappointed to hear that John was not going to have the condo repainted, so she told him that she would pay someone else $3,000 to have it done. At her painting contractor's suggestion, she paid him an additional $12,000 to install a new kitchen floor, new kitchen appliances, and new bathroom fixtures. Well, see, that's what she's going to try to get underneath for remedies. But remember, we're talking about an incidental beneficiary, right? So this is a really interesting hypothetical here. Now, coming down here to defenses Carl concerted against Martha, we know the statute of frauds doesn't apply. There might be unilateral mistake. What about impossibility? Is it impossible for Carl to perform? That's not impossible. Or I should say, possible for Martha to perform. No, because she could have easily paid Carl's travel and lodging expenses. So that's not impossible. How about impractical? Well, we already know that she was willing to fork out $12 more thousand dollars. So that, what, the impracticability argument fails there. What about frustration of purpose? The reason for contracting hasn't been frustrated beyond repair. Right. No truck. That's exactly right. So he could have provided, that's what, travel expenses. That's exactly right. That's therein is the reason for the travel expenses. That's right. So here are the defenses Carl can assert against Martha: statute of frauds, 1 year rule, unilateral mistake, impossibility, impracticability, possible frustration purpose. Make sure that underneath here we're throwing in conclusions, because that's always great to tie the analysis up in a nice little bow. Okay, right here. Then okie dokie. Now coming down to number 3, can Martha bring? What claims can Martha bring against John? Now remember, the best one I think is that we have contract formation, which is all the above reasonings. Okay, so it's like supra above, right? But make sure we talk about mutual assent, and make sure to talk about consideration. Okay, and because that's where our promissory estoppel is going to be an important factor that she's going to be able to say. Yeah, exactly. Now, down here underneath promissory estoppel, what is it then that Martha is going to try to say? She's going to try to bring reliance damages, at least for that, and then she's going to try to get remedies. And remember, she could go for the the expectation damages. Make sure we quickly bring up consequential and that's Hadley versus Baxendale, reliance damages and incidental damages. Now, here's a very interesting aspect. What defenses can John assert against Martha? I would say, yeah, she could. Yeah, exactly. She could go for the condo. Yeah, cost of repainting the condo. Now remember, is it the condo? John had promised that she would give her the condo. That's right, the cost of the condo. Very good spot on that one. Very good. So that would be for the cost of condo. Okay, exactly. And then now, what defenses though can John assert against Martha? Well, it looks to me like he can bring up. Well, he's got the unilateral mistake aspect. Okay, possibly. You know what? I would probably have to say the mutual mistake here, because both parties were mistaken as to what was it now? What was excuse me? You're going to have to retype that for me. See, that's where I'm saying that there's a, I think, mutual mistake. I'm just going to throw in mistake up here. See, he didn't. Oh, right. Okay, you know what? That'll between the parties, between John and Martha. Would you find there being a mistake? No. Okay, very good. See, very good. I didn't see one either. Very good spot on that. Very good. Now, under the impossibility argument, he's going to say up here, last paragraph, after Martha graduated. Now remember what this is. Make sure to throw in a quick little discussion here that after promissory estoppel, there was a condition argument. Condition proceed. Okay. Now, because that was that she satisfied the condition in that after she graduated up here. Let's see. John promised that she would give her the condo when she graduated. She graduated right here. Okay. John told her that he could no longer afford to give her the condo Well, we know that it's not impossible for him to not give her the condo, so that impossibility would not be a viable defense for John. But impracticability is going to try to say it's it is not financially, or sorry, cannot afford, excuse me, to give her the condo. Well, that would be, yeah, impracticable. It, that would that would be a defense that would fail because it wouldn't cause John to become insolvent, and he can still give it to her. Why? Because he promised it to her, and that's why. And the other thing too about impracticability is that the impracticability argument rests on whether or not he assumed that, or he, yeah, when he entered into the agreement with Martha up here, when he promised Martha that he would assume that in the event that the repainting would not occur, that he would absorb, he would still have to follow through with his promise. So yeah, I would say yeah. He said he would yeah, and need the money from the, yeah, that's right. Which is that a reason for avoiding a promise under impracticability? I don't think that that's a valid um, argument because, like we just said, I think he would have assumed that when he made the promise. Right, exactly. Now, um, it's up here. Yeah, okay, that's right. Now, frustration of purpose. Now, about the frustration of purpose argument, would that work for John here? I don't see that as working either, because the reason for Martha receiving the condo actually matured at this point because she graduated. So this, just because he could no longer afford to give her the condo and instead would be selling it, that doesn't necessarily mean that the frustration for the agreement in the first place has been, well, essentially frustrated beyond any one of the parties or ability to repair it. So yeah, so I would say at that point, like we argued, no, there's no frustration of purpose. Okay. Now, is there anything else here that I'm not seeing that you have issue spotted? Well, what, you know what, I would say here, what type of not only promissory estoppel as an argument, but what type of contract are we dealing with here? Maybe a bilateral contract. I just want to make sure to throw that in there up here. Just copy it or cut that and put it up here. Make sure to note that. Okay, I think we have this. Now make sure to also throw down our conclusions. Okay, down here. Okay. Wow, this definitely was a bear cat of a hypothetical. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in. Issue spotting this with me, going through our tactics, our strategies, and want to put a shout out to Chess Cruncher TV. Keep chess crunching, Chess Cruncher. I also want to put a shout out to my Amazon Kindle book, Battling the Big Bad Baby Bar, Essay Basics. Thank you so much for sticking with me on this, wrestling through this and coming out on it with I think a great answer. And thank you. And look forward to more videos in the future. We're going to be dealing with the whole first year law students exam November 2020, questions 3 and 4 in the future. Okay. Thank you so much for tuning in. God bless.